Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. We want to let you know that we have once again been honored with a nomination for the Hockey Podcast of the Year via the Sports Podcasting Awards. And all you need to do to help us is go to ourkidsplayhockey.com and click on the Vote Now button. It asks you a couple questions. You're in and you're out, and you have voted for us for Hockey Podcast of the Year. I want to thank you all for being a wonderful, wonderful audience and helping us get to this stature of hockey podcasting, because we've done it as a family, as the hockey friends and families around the world. Thanks so much and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world. Welcome to yet another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey with Mike Bonelli and Christy Casciano-Burns. I'm Lee Elias. Today we have a very special guest with us. Ray Carsillo is a good friend of mine. I'll explain why this is kind of a crossover episode in a minute. But we're here with Ray today because we're going to be talking about video games and gaming and online stuff. If you're a parent listening at home, this is a very important episode for you, whether you think it is or not. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about Ray. Ray is no stranger to sports, gaming, and media. He spent 3 years as a producer and a reporter for ESPN Radio and ESPN Video Games, 7 years as the reviews and previews editor for Electronic Gaming Monthly, and as a writer and producer for DC Daily. He's currently the brand marketing manager and the community manager for Boss Teen Games, and he is joining us here today to talk about the digital world's place within the real world when it comes to young athletes and kids and coaches and parents. So Ray, first off, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me, everybody. That was a great intro, Lee. Expected nothing less. Thank you.
Right. So for those of you at home who don't know, Ray is actually a co-host of mine on another show we do called Geeks Who Like Sports. And what's funny is he usually does this intro. So it's one of the rare times where I'm doing the intro for a show. But Ray, we're not here to talk about geek stuff today, kind of. We are here to talk about sports. Might as well call it sports fans who like geeks today. But, the first question, Ray, and I want to jump right into it, is you've been around the gaming world for most of your life. So yes. The first question is this: how has it changed from when you were a kid to now in regards to the interconnectivity it's allowed for players to have? Because when we were kids, it was you played the game and that was it. Now it's a totally different world.
Well, yeah, I mean, since the advent of things like Xbox Live in the early 2000s, and also Dreamcast had some internet capabilities in the late 90s, it's completely different than how we grew up, right? You never had the idea of playing with somebody on the other side of the world was never even in most people's heads, right? Like, I mean, we got to remember, we also grew up in the era where you had to pay money to dial someone long distance. Right. That's all gone by the wayside now as technology has advanced. And now with video games, it feels like you can play with somebody like they're right in the same room with you if you have the right headset and the right webcam. And so it's completely connected now, as much as we are here on Zoom recording this podcast.
Right, absolutely. And what's going to be interesting about this show today, Ray, is that Mike is a very, very experienced coach, and Christy is a very experienced parent. I guess I could look at, among other things, right, Christy? And what I like about this is we're going to really be able to toss this conversation around where Mike will take it from more of a coaching perspective. And I know Mike has seen his kids have results of playing games, both good and bad. And Christy admittedly doesn't know a lot about gaming. I guess that comes with being an anchor for a long time at a very professional news network that we won't name on here. But it's great, Christy, because I was saying before the show that sometimes it's what we don't know that can become the issue with the larger audience at hand. So Ray, I do want to jump into the next question, which is that, parents should have to balance gaming with real life activities. If you ask any kid, most of them are going to want to game all day. But yes. I want everyone to hear it from you, someone who does game a lot, that you do need to balance these two things.
That's my biggest concern.
Right.
It's too much.
Yeah, no, it's really easy for the game to be like a built-in babysitter. Not to knock my own parents, but I know that whenever they needed to be quiet or something, it'd be like, here, go play your Nintendo, go. So it could become definitely a tool in an easier tool to make things sometimes if your kids are especially rowdy. But I mean, you need to strike that balance. Right, for sure, because you could very easily fall into the hole and the trap of playing games for 6, 8, 10 hours a day, or like me, like I used to way back in the day, you'd go 24 hours straight. You just keep on playing until you finally passed out in front of the console. Yeah, you just keep on going. Super Mario RPG, Fallout, didn't matter. Let's go. Just keep on playing. But yeah, so I mean, definitely finding a way, being able to, putting them on a time limit, making sure, be like, hey, next save point, let's hop off the console, and or Nick, can you get off now? It's like, because obviously the last thing you want to do is also make, just shut the system off when in the middle of a save because they'll hate you forever. So yeah, so you don't want to.
What's wrong with that?
Okay, that's
no.
one.
Okay. Here it comes.
Yeah, you don't understand when you're so close to a goal that if you're not at that save point. So having that leeway a little bit, sometimes being like, hey, listen, the next save point's right around this hill or something.
No, it's dinner time.
No,
you're done.
No. So this
you're
is
done.
where I'm going to
get
chime
off
in.
that thing
Yeah.
and come and eat. That's it.
A few things. So okay, dinner time usually is an exception for a lot of this. There is part of this culture now that's clashing. Okay, and it's funny because Ray and I received one end of it, but as a young parent myself, I'm on the other side of this issue now with my own kid. Now, this is what's funny about it. Okay. There is this kind of stigma from anybody that's probably 35 or up that video games will ruin your mind. They'll rot your brain. They're a waste of time. I don't subscribe to that.
These are my talking points every day. So keep going. Keep going.
No. These are all wrong.
Yeah,
They've all been debunked.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Right. Well, this is what I'm saying. This is the contention point on this episode that a lot of parents have to realize. And Ray and I are going to probably be on the same side here, and you two might not be on the same side here with us. But the truth is this: I'm not against gaming. I think gaming is a really great thing. I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, Ray, but there's a lot of positive communities on gaming. It's a place for people to meet each other. And if it's done correctly, meaning in moderation, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think it's a waste of time. And I think that, again, when we look back to the arcade era or even the early Nintendo Sega era, I can see how that would drone out because you're literally just sitting there yourself secluded. But Ray, you can dive into this. The gaming world is totally different today. In fact, I'll just bring it to the next question because it kind of leads into that. But how can certain games and communities both detract and enhance social interaction with young kids? And really, I'm asking, what are the dangers and the benefits? You can tackle one, and then we can dive into the other.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's definitely, there is both, right? There are definitely pros and cons, like with a lot of things. I think the pros for sure is that, well, first off, it's been proven that games help with your critical thinking skills. They help with, problem solving and things of that nature. They actually exercise a piece of the brain that doesn't always get exercised a lot of times in school or play, because you're oftentimes throwing problems at people that don't always come in those forms, or they wrap them up in an entertaining form and give kids a chance to really kind of expand their creativity that way. And in terms of social aspects, now with certain games, with being able to talk to people over headsets, there's things like Discord, there's specific programs that you can sign in. I kind of call Discord a glorified AOL chat room for back in the day, but now it really has become this place where there are certain games, you have a community, you have community managers, you have people like myself whose job it is to try to moderate these communities, and then try and build this positive community for people to the way they can interact, they can play with each other, they can find, play dates, they can find ways that, like, hey, I'm going to be online at this time, in this world, here's my gamer tag. And, a lot of times this is a great way for kids to interact, especially nowadays. I mean, we're in the middle of the pandemic or hopefully coming out of it. It's been a great way for people to stay connected. I know that for me, a lot of ways, my community, when I do on Twitch, a lot of kids have really appreciated, because I mostly do sports games, and they appreciate it because they can come into my Twitch, they can talk with me, they can talk with other sports fans about sports games and sports in general. And it's something that they've lost because they haven't had a chance to be in school with their buddies for the past years plus. So there's definitely positive ways to interact and to build this social dynamic with kids.
All right, but there's also the darker side. I mean, I get nervous when I don't know who these people are my kids are talking to. So how do I screen that? How do I make sure that they're not talking to people who have, bad intentions?
Well, I mean, there's definitely got to be some guidelines and some education in terms of what they can and can't do. Being in a chat room and just having a friendly conversation with someone's no harm. But if somebody starts asking for private information, location, email, phone numbers, that's when you got to be like, no, don't do that. In fact, all the time in my own chat, when people start doing that, I either I time them out and say, hey, listen, this is a warning. Do not do this. Do not ask for personal information. Or if they're very aggressive with it, we ban them. We kick them out of the chat. We permanently ban them. We don't let them back in. because you have to be aware of these things. I mean, the beautiful thing about things like Twitch, a lot of times you can see them on your computer screen, you can see them on your phone. And so it's just a matter of monitoring, the screen time of your child and making sure that you know what they're doing and who they're watching, and being aware of sometimes the bigger names, right? Like Ninja or Shroud. These are the bigger Twitch streamers, much like anybody would watch a talk show on television, right? So most of those times, those communities are larger and more active, and they have mods in there, making sure to try and keep it as safe as possible. But also being aware of what games that they are watching when they're on in these chats. They might be watching games that you don't want them to watch.
Right.
The ESRB is out there for a reason, folks. It's the video game. Those who know, it's the video game rating system similar to films. E is for everyone, T is for teen, M is for mature. There's and the E10 plus, which is obviously everyone, but recommended 10 and older, which is kind of like PG-13.
Yes, that's their version of that. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, making sure that you're aware of what your kids are playing and what they're ingesting, that's something that I have to deal with every day in my community, where it's clear we have a game that's pretty much E for everyone. It has cartoon violence. So it's kind of like 12 and 10 or 12 and up, but it's pretty tame in that regards. But like, there are typically kids in there, and sometimes we have to say, hey, listen, we're gonna ask you to leave because we suspect that this isn't an appropriate chat room for you, because we get the sense, obviously we have no way of knowing for sure, that they are somebody younger. Typically you start looking for signs like grammar, you start looking at questions that they ask, you start looking at their activity in terms of the game and things of that nature. So you try to do it. You try to be as active as possible. Same thing with my stream. I make sure that it's marked family friendly. That means I have to act within a certain amount of parameters. Like I avoid swearing as much as possible. I avoid, again, I mostly do sports games. If I do an M-rated game, I put a warning up beforehand saying, hey, listen, we're doing a bloody game today. We're doing a game with a lot of swearing. I'm not going to be doing any swearing or anything, but just so you guys are aware, and trying to be active. Now, of course, not everybody is as proactive as I am, but again, it's just making sure that you are as educated as possible in what your children are watching and consuming, like you would be with any other television show or movie.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that guidance.
Yeah, and Ray, I think, and Lee, right, and Christy, I think it's the same. If you drop your kids off at the park and you don't know who the kids are at the park, and you just let them hang out with unsavory characters, that's your job as a parent, right? But Ray, I just want to go back real quick. And Leah, just to step in, because you've drawn me in to the community part, right? Because everything we talk about with teams and youth sports is building communities, and we just have to build. And the way I look at gaming, to me, with teen, let's just talk about like 14 to 10-year-olds. Okay. That community piece is so appealing to me because they're doing it, right? So how can we harness that and actually use it in a good way? Like how can we take this great responsibility and use it in a way where we can build our teams and communities? So, maybe you could talk a little bit more about, and I love Twitch. I know the NWHL uses Twitch, and I actually, that's the only reason I knew about Twitch. I'm not a gamer. And then like all the kids I know are like, well, that's really cool. Do you have the Twitch app? Because I use that for gaming all day. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is I can see hockey games.
If I may, and Ray, real quick before you answer this, I do want to say to the whole audience, if you've never heard of Twitch, Discord, if you don't know what streaming is, and look, I'm not putting that past it. There's no judgment here. If you have young kids, you need to know what those places are. All right. Yeah. Because they're not small. We're going to get to that in a minute. But Twitch, Discord, again, the terminology that Ray is using, if it's not familiar to you, you might want to look up what these things are, because they're incredibly powerful places. Anyway, Ray, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just want to.
I should also mention Facebook and YouTube now have huge gaming audiences as well. They've gotten into the space because obviously it's a huge moneymaker. We're not going to get into the economics of that, but gaming is permeated all your major social networks. But in terms of like building the community, I think it's about trying to find, it's the same thing as any sport, right? It's like-minded people who have a common interest, who have a goal in mind, whether that's, getting better at a game or getting together and learning certain skills, right? Like, learning how to swing a baseball bat or hit a hockey puck right or throw a football. It's the same as learning hit detection in a fighting game, which is, for those of you who don't know, that's basically in the computer lingo. It's when the computer recognizes that if you throw a punch and it connects with the character model. It then registers on a health bar. That's what we refer to as.
Which damn button is that? Which one is it? I can't figure it out.
It's all the ones with the colors on it. It's the X, Y, X, Y, Y, A, B.
So this is Greek to me. This is completely, this is foreign.
For those of you listening, Mike just held up an Xbox controller.
Yes.
But I see that that's where I want you to go, Ray. I mean, I'm thinking if I have a team, I have a bunch of 13-year-olds. They're disassociated, right? Basically, in real life, like forget about gaming. They go to the rink and they're texting each other across the bench. So this to me, it looks like a way to assimilate kids in an environment that they're already comfortable in,
right?
And then using, the video chat, the headsets, really feeling like you're part of the community, and you can be in like team. It doesn't have to be hockey, right? I know maybe we'll talk about like the different aspects of learning through video games, but it's just like the same reason I bring my kids to go do paintball. I don't expect them to be paintball experts. I expect them to be teammates. And this way is just another vehicle to bring those teams together, right?
Yes, this is a great way to learn communication skills, right? Like bringing people together in order to, if you can work together to take a point in Call of Duty or Gears of War or Plants vs. Zombies, if you have for younger children, you can definitely take those skills onto the field or the court or the rink. And, again, being able to communicate with one another is a huge thing, and you develop comfort level with people, right? Especially, it's a great way to ingrain new people, because, like you said, if you have a new, maybe an out of town, a transfer student or somebody who's new to town and they want to join the team, make friends. Typical games are a great way of lowering that barrier of entry, right? And so this way it gets people talking, because if you want to win, you've got to talk in a video game, because a lot of times, especially in those games I mentioned, you don't have the video chat going, right? You just have the headset. And I think that in a way is a great way of getting people to learn about each other too, because you have to have a conversation. It's like an old school phone call. You have to talk to each other, right? You can't, there's no physical, nonverbal cues or anything. And I think that once you develop that rapport with each other, and a game is a great way of doing that, then you can then translate that stuff into your respective sport. So I definitely think that, if teams were to get together and play Fortnite and play, again, Plants vs. Zombies, or play any other game that's out there that's especially team oriented, Apex Legends. We leave a couple of our mutual friends, Travis and Casey, and I always play Apex Legends, and we're constantly communicating with each other. It helps that we're already friends, but even when I'm not, when I'm playing with strangers, the first thing that I always ask is does anybody have a headset? And if they do, we typically have a leg up on the people who don't. And I think that once when you can communicate that message about communication and through games, you can translate it very easily, I think, into sports.
Especially with the tactical games. It's amazing sometimes, especially at the professional level, the level of communication that these gaming teams have. Mike, to even expand on that a little bit more, we love to tell stories on this show. And one of my favorite stories to tell of youth hockey, a time period I don't talk about too much, but sometime in the late 90s, we would go on tournaments. I remember one year we went to Can-Am up at Lake Placid, and Lake Placid's a wonderful place. There's a lot of fun things to do there. When we weren't playing the games on the ice in the 1980 gold medal rink, we were playing Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey on N64 in our hotel rooms. And I remember that, that's not an online game. There was no online game back in the day, but the bonding that we had just playing those games together of who had next, that was a huge deal to our team. So, Mike, what I'd say to you, and this is something experimental, but here's the deal: every kid on your team is chatting, like you said. They're all gamers. I ask coaches all the time, how many kids on your team play games? It's 100%, right? Maybe encouraging a team online play of a tactical game and let them decide. They'll know what they are. They'll know what they want to play. But you'd be surprised if you just suggest that, like, for team building today, we're going to play Apex Legends, and it's okay if you don't know what that is. We're going to do it. Do you have a team Discord? The other funny part about this is, and it's always funny when you think about things as an adult and we look at kids. Adults do the same thing. Every adult league team I've ever been on has a community chat and a fantasy hockey league. Every single one of them. That's gaming too. It's not the same thing as having a controller, but we do this as adults too. And why? Why do we do it? For bragging rights? Sure. But we do it because it's a way to bring the team together, of a way to talk to each other.
What do you mean? Peloton's making a whole life out of this, right? I mean,
Right.
you're in a community.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I love that. And I love, because I'm thinking back
Gamification.
when I was coaching in college, the kids used to bring the Sega, game, and they'd figure out a way to hook it up to the TV with the,
LAN
because now it's not as easy, right? No Bluetooth, but it would be like the two really good players, like
Yeah.
Brett Hull versus Wayne Gretzky. And then, but all the other kids were sitting on the bed in the hotel room
watching
and cheering. And you think back about, like, I never thought that was like crazy. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool.
The early days. I used to have a gigantic, I had a case, Mike, that I would bring with me. Like, I was a huge case strictly for my Nintendo 64, right? With all the games in it. You had to have a variety just in case someone played.
Right. But I think from Christy and I's era, right? And my era, sorry, Christy, is from my era, that the fear is the isolation, the kid in the closet playing video games by himself and isolating himself from the rest of the world. And that's where the fear comes in. Like, for a parent, for me,
right.
That are like, I would love it if I came down. I'm like, well, who are you playing with? I don't know, some kid from Asia or some kid from Norway. Like, that I could deal with, but it's
always fear what you don't understand.
Right. The kid living in his mom's basement till he's 30 years old playing video games. Right?
Yeah, but those guys are making a lot of money. So I think the idea is, where is the fear, and then what can we do to mitigate that fear by saying, hey, there is a world, like, right, 30 years ago, nobody would ever be a computer programmer. Like, people are like, well, that's the weirdest thing in the world. Why would you ever want to do that? It's impossible to think like that. But now, like, I know the school I went to, they have gaming as a major. Like, there's a whole gaming room. Like, you walk in and it's all monitors and they're learning how to.
Most colleges do now. When we did our college tours, I was so really impressed by the amount of money and attention now being spent on the, as a curriculum and as just catering as they have teams, so you can compete in college as a gamer. Yeah, so it's really elevated the status in colleges too.
Yeah, there's a lot of colleges now that, like you're saying, have pro esports teams, and you're even seeing this. You're seeing pro arenas being built. One, I think, is being done in Philly. I know one was finished in Vegas. There's one of the biggest ones here in LA. So, I mean, it's definitely growing by leaps and bounds to the point where it is a more social thing, and that's the great thing too. Go see a video game tournament live. Trust me, it is just as crazy, if not more so, than any sporting event. You go to the Evo Fighting Game Championship tournament, and it is a party, and it is, obviously before COVID, hopefully next year we'll be back in person, but literally thousands upon people watching a big screen of people playing Street Fighter for tens of thousands of dollars in prize money. So.
Yeah, but Ray, you're using the same argument that we've used as hockey people for years and years and years. You got to see it. Like, I know, like, everybody outside our hockey world thinks you're crazy. Like, you people are all nuts. Like, why would you like a sport like that? No, you got to be there. You got to feel the energy. And that's the same way that I'm seeing the gaming world evolve, is that if you're not in the world of that, like, seeing a hockey game on TV is much different than sitting by the glass, right? And feeling the hockey game. And my son says it all the time. Like, what are you doing? You're watching somebody else play a video game. Like, you're I said, he goes, well, you watch the Rangers. That's true. Somebody else playing hockey. Right. I go, all right, I get it, but I don't like it.
Ray, let me tee you off here, because I'm gonna have Ray. Ray said we're not gonna get into the economics, but I'm gonna do it, Ray, because I want Ray to go into this stat, because I guarantee you 90% of the audience listening to this show does not know this stat. And this is where the comparison sets off. Everyone knows that professional sports is a big deal. Everyone knows what they are, even if they don't go or watch it, they know what they are. Ray, you don't have to be exact here, but could you bestow to the audience how big the gaming business is? Because I guarantee you people do not realize this till you say it.
So the gaming industry makes as much money in a year as the 4 major sports leagues and the movie industry combined. So it dwarfs every other major entertainment industry, music, movies, every league, every sport, MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, MLS, you name it. The video game industry is leaps and bounds ahead of it in terms of how much money it pulls in.
Right.
It is such a global. I mean, and also to go to your point, I think part of the reason is that gaming, more than a lot of other of these sports and industries and all this other stuff, has a very low barrier of entry. All you need nowadays is a phone. And there's free to play games on here. You can download them for nothing, including my game. But there's tons of games you can get into, and then you build a community, and that's how you get involved, and that's how it starts.
Well, we don't have to like that, Ray. We don't have to accept those numbers, by the way.
That's fuzzy math, Ray. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't accept that, but I think it's such a scary thing as a parent, because we're coming out. We're not in that world. It's the same. It's the same reason why we don't like kids, not having belts on and their pants hanging down below their waist, right? It's just getting past the errors.
Things are changing. Things are changing, and especially in the gaming industry, things are changing at light speed. Technology, again, more than the video game industry has come farther in 30 years than the movie industry has come in 100 plus. And most sports, and sports, for better or worse, have stagnated, right? We know the rules; they're set in place. Sometimes you hear about baseball talking about an electronic strike zone or something, but it's still there. It's slow moving progress. It's glacial progress. Whereas games are moving at light speed. You have new systems every 5 or 6 years, new chips. You have more processing power now, and a chip smaller than my pinky nail. Then you used to be able to. That stuff used to power the space shuttle, and they used to be the size of an entire room. Right. Those computers. So it used to be in NASA and whatnot. Now they're this big, right? And they're on everybody's console for less than $500.
Don't you think that's why it's so appealing, Ray, for kids to gravitate towards something that they have full control over? I have no control over. If I'm watching my son, right, play baseball, I have no control. He has no control over the strike zone. He has no control over his swing. He can't swing the way he can swing like a great player in a video game. And don't you think in a lot of ways that takes like that is a great analogy, that access, that a comfort level, that ability to say, I could be great at this on my couch. And I think that's honestly, like in our audience, that's, to me, that's the fear. The fear is it's too easy. It's too accessible. It's too fun. It is. Well, I mean, because it's just like because at the same time, you want them to be active.
We got to break thinking, your kids and that's the change. We got to break that stigma. Like, let me twist this real quick to Christy. Christy, I could tell that when Ray said that number, that was news to you.
That jumped. Right? That just spoke volumes. So, I can't believe the money involved, which concerns me to some degree. That there's because when it's big money, everybody wants their fingers into it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Now that's going to prove my point. Okay. This is exactly why I'm kind of picking on you here. Okay. Because I want to turn this towards tips for parents a little bit here. I'm talking to both of you as parents now. If I told you there was an industry out there this big that is legit attracting children, doesn't even really matter what the industry is. That statement alone is kind of scary. You could equate that to cigarettes at one point in the history of the country. You could also equate it to sports, okay? Because like I said, you don't know. But as a parent, and Christy, I'm speaking to you directly here. As a parent, if I told you that there's a monster industry that's attracting kids, you don't know much about it, what do we need to do as parents then?
Right. Alarm bells right away go off. Right. You know what? And I got to tell you, what concerns me especially is the graphics are getting better and better and more detailed. They're also getting really graphic. It concerns me how violent these games have become. And my children create these characters and it really creeps me out. They look just like them in the game. I can't believe I was like, oh my God, that's you in the game, Joey. Yeah, that's me. I'm killing all these people. It's
It is hard. I mean,
it's
come on, you
hard
got to
to.
admit.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm like old-fashioned mom, but that's hard to watch. I got to be honest with you. I'm being honest with you.
what,
It's
though?
hard to watch.
I understand that. They've actually found most studies, though, that people typically the folks who play the more violent games tend to be less violent in real life. It becomes an outlet. No, it's an outlet. It's an outlet. And going also back to Mike's point, it is an ego thing, right? It does hit that serotonin, that nice part of the brain that that when you press the A button every time. You're going to jump this high. You're going to swing the sword this hard. You're going to shoot the gun like this, right? Like, it doesn't matter what it is, what game it is. And I think that it's learning a pattern and learning the rules of the game as much as you would learn the rules of a sport. And this time, though, you don't have the limitations that come from your natural God-given ability or lack thereof. I think that what's great about the avatars, and I think the realism is that we are getting further and further and more immersed, but it's as much as reading a book or not as much. But you immerse yourself in a book, you immerse yourself in a movie. A game is just doing this the same way. The only difference is between a game and a movie is you have a controller in your hand and you have a say-so, you have a level of agency about what happens. You are crafting your own story in a way. Which of course just it's a creative experience, and it's a way of interacting with media that you've never had before.
Right, but this is why we're competing, right? Because you're asking me to take a 9-year-old and come at 6 o'clock at night, and I'm going to say you must go to this cone, and then you must go around the net. You must accept the pass. You must give it to this kid, and you have to go down this way. And the kid goes home and goes, I can do whatever the hell I want. If I'm controlling my life. And so you think about from an athletic point of view, because we're talking about athletics here. And because I just say to my kids with books, like, put the book down. It's too much. Like, you're reading too much, and I know that is crazy because I can hardly read myself.
I've never said that to my kid, Mike.
Oh, well, I know, but it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, put the book down. Like, that's like the Harry Potter world, right? Like, you live it. You're in it. You're engulfed in it. And I, listen, I played Dungeons and Dragons. I went through the whole process of like
one of us.
I'm like, wait a minute, we've been in this room for 12 hours. I said, what the hell are we doing? Like, this is crazy. But I think it's I don't know. Again, I think I'm on Christy's side. I'm going to put my side on Christy's side of the screen here.
I'm a Pac-Man girl, so that's right.
Listen, I tried. I did. I don't know what it was, like big
that's
game
hunter.
Let me jump in here. Mike. I got to say something to you, Mike. So,
please,
Ray, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. Okay, there is no study that shows that video game violence leads to actual violence. There is no science behind that, even though it's been said by politicians, it's been said by a lot of people. There is no correlation between video game violence and actual violence on a scientific level. Now, with that said, and this is where I'm going to win this battle since you've chosen a side, okay? Every single parent section I've ever sat at a hockey game or just a regular hockey game is more violent than the gaming community that I've been part of. And I can prove it to you right now. Ray and I were invited, it's almost 2 years ago now, to go to PAX West, which is one of the biggest gaming conventions in the country, to go as panelists.
Yep, up in
I
Seattle.
had no idea what to expect. I've never been to one of these, right? I'm not saying this in a insulting way. It was the softest group of people I have ever met in my entire life. There no harm. They were like harmless. They were also the most kind. They were completely outgoing in the sense of wanting to communicate with other gamers. It was a joy to be there. The only thing I would say is maybe the personal hygiene was a little bit below par.
That is an issue at some
okay.
conventions.
Well, when you're sitting in a room for 15 hours straight, I mean,
right. Well, Mike, you played Dungeons and Dragons, so you get it. Yeah. But no, that's my point. Is that and again, Christy, this goes back to your point, right? Like, it's an understandable fear. Like, look, I'm a parent too. Okay, I think about what my kid's playing. That's why the rating system exists. That's why parents must moderate what their kids are watching and doing. It's not a babysitter, as Ray said that earlier in the show. Right. If you're going to leave your kid in front of the screen, let him watch whatever he wants. He's going to end up on something he shouldn't be watching. He or she is going to end up on something they should not be watching. But I gotta say that there is no statistics to support any violence from video games transcends the game.
Well, athletic parents don't care about statistics. Those things don't matter.
Just on the ice, right?
Because if my kid's going to make it, they're going to make it. I know that. Don't give me the percentages.
Right.
Don't give me that kids should play cross ice and more touches. That's all BS. But listen, you can see it. It's an appealing error. It's an appealing process. I like it for I think I like it for the reasons that I want to like it, right? And for the team part and the maybe learning the game. If you're doing a sport game, I mean, I probably where what I'd rather see is I think I'd much rather see like NHL 21 over Fortnite or whatever. I'd rather see a kid hitting a baseball than shooting somebody up in the street. That's just me. But again, I guess it's all a matter of who your kid is. I love that. I love that you're the process of saying, well, these kids aren't violent individuals. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing that shows that they become violent from it.
Right.
But I'm just looking at the face going, okay, well, you're playing hockey. Okay, cool.
You know what? Saying video games cause violence is the same argument that people were making against movies and music and comic books and all this other stuff. And it's just the newest thing on the block. That's all it is. I also want to point out one other thing is that a lot of folks don't realize that a lot of pro esports teams also do have a physical regimen. They are required to stay in some sort of shape as well. In fact, actually, the Street Fighter pro players a lot of times in Japan have some of the most demanding physical regimens, forced usually to run several miles a day to try and keep themselves going because they understand that it isn't healthy for them in the long term, like you said, Mike, to sit in their basement all day for 10, 12 hours at a go. So a lot of these institutions also institute a level of physical activity. So a lot of these players do get outside. They might not be doing the coordination activities of hitting a ball or a puck or throwing a football or something, but they do get outside and they do tend to be in surprisingly good shape. A lot of them.
Well, if you have your cortex going off, your body has to go with it, right? I mean, if your brain is going to develop, you have to have good nutrition. You have to have, if you want to be the top of your game, right, in any game, whether you're thinking or playing, right? So that's great.
The Mountain Dew and Doritos swilling stereotype is not an accurate one for many gamers. Not saying all, but there are reasons why that image has popped up in most people's minds. But
I'm happy to hear all this myth busting. This is helping me understand what my children are doing. I do love that they play the NHL. They call it chill, I guess is what
Chell, yeah.
Chell. Let's play Chell. I'm like, what is that? Come on, let's go play Chell. Yeah. And they'll do it for hours and they kind of envision, they go battle against each other and they have their players and they have a ball. And that's great. I love that. I'm glad we're having this session because I got to tell you, I was really kind of uncomfortable with a lot of the video games they were playing and what they were doing and not knowing who they're talking to. They got their headsets on. I'm like, who are you talking to?
That's why we have to have these conversations. And that's the whole point. Look, I got to say this too. All right. Because we need a taste of our own medicine here, especially on this show right now. And I'll tell you why, right? We're always talking about how you shouldn't be playing hockey year round. We're always talking about you wouldn't be on the ice 12 hours a day, right? This is no different when it comes to gaming, right? You should not let your child game for 12 hours a day. It's excessive, right? In moderation. My son, for example, my son, this is actually funny now I'm thinking about it. My son was given his first Nintendo by Ray Carsillo. Okay. And he loves it. He's really obsessed with it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you as a parent to almost a disturbing level. I'll even say that. Okay. But we've explained to our son, and this is the parenting part of it. Logan, if you want to earn the Nintendo time, you have to do some physical activity. You have to do well in school. You have to do all these things in moderation, and then you can continue to play your games. And he will play for hours, right? But we don't just let it take him over. I'm very conscious of what he's playing. He's not going to play any games rated M for mature. In fact, he's not going to play anything that's not an E for everything.
I got a Mario Brothers. I did not get him like Call of Duty. I also want to put that out there.
Right. But my point is that like coaches have a hard time following their own advice. You just have to apply the same logic, right? Now, and again, we love the idea that they're playing NHL 21 or whatever the year is when you're watching this. But here's the deal. Now we're always talking on this show about don't do hockey all the time. So if the kid doesn't want to play the NHL game, I hate the NHL games. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not a fan. Right. I want to play something else. Yeah, they're not good games. Well,
they're kind of starting on the decline. NHL 18 was very good. They're on a decline. We're not going to get into it, but they're in it's a new console generation, whole hardware thing. Yeah.
Right.
I just want my kids to open up the Just Dance one I got, and it's still closed up. It's still like wrapped up.
Right. It's because you bought
I'll do it with you.
Yeah, Just Dance.
Let's do
that's a
it.
good point. That is actually a good point, though. There are also a lot of games out there that help you move around.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why what's Nintendo's best known for is like a couple of generations ago was Wii Fit and Wii Sports, and it got everybody in the living room involved and active. And we are getting to that point now where if you guys saw Ready Player One, the movie, that contraption, that harness that they were in, we're going to have that in our living rooms, I think, less than 10 years.
Haptics.
I think,
I
think
Ray, it's funny when we play or whatever, when we came out, right? That was like the whole, like, I'm like, oh, thank God. There's like something like you got to move and you got to dance, you got to step. Like this actually might be the answer. And you got to, you can play tennis. And then, kids are hitting each other with the tennis thing, but you could see where you could get excited about that part, but it's still, it's over, but I think to Lee's point though, like, and I think that we see this with all the kids is that the games are so real. They're so accessible. It's so, I could see how the kids could get sucked in because like Christy said it, I played Tetris. How long can you play Tetris? Back then, not today's Tetris. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on.
There's virtual reality Tetris, Mike, that would blow your mind.
Like
I'm not even lying.
Comes out and bites you or something like that. That's fine.
Right.
But I think
so.
So that's sorry.
I have to be a good host here because we are absolutely running out of time, and I know Christina's got to go. So this is the deal. This is how I want to end this because there's one final question, right? So to kind of merge my worlds here, you can dread it, you can run from it, but in the end, it's all the same. This industry is not going anywhere. It's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So to anyone listening, to anyone watching, to Christy, to Mike, you can fight it all you want. I'm not saying you're fighting it. You know what I mean? It's only going to get bigger. And as Ray alluded to, and Ray, I want you to go into kind of what the future looks like. We're just getting started in this industry. Virtual reality is absolutely coming. We will have headsets on. We will have haptic suits on. They will become more real. And that's the thing is I'm trying to say to parents out there is you need to invest some time into just understanding the gaming world a little bit. And again, I don't mean like you got to sit down, try and be your kid's best friend, play the game with them, all right, or her. All right, but have an idea, all right? Like, again, real quick, Ray, before you jump in, one of the negative things about communities right now is we just had a professional athlete use an anti-Semitic slur on a game.
Yes.
Right. So you do need to monitor who's in there. What words are they hearing? What words are they learning? And parent, you don't say that word. Here's why.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Don't let them normalize those words. But Ray, again, the future of gaming, because I really want to impress upon our audience that and every parent generation goes through this phase of like, I just don't get it. I don't understand. And it's okay. We all go through that. Where is this industry going? What can parents do to be better involved? And obviously any final thoughts that you may have.
Well, I mean, I think in terms of being better involved is just sit down when your kid's playing and talk to them and just ask like some simple questions and be like, so what's the objective of this game? What are you doing? What do you get out of this? Just talk to me. You don't have to understand everything about it, but some of my favorite memories was when my mom would sit next to me and watch me play Ninja Turtles, TMNT 2 on the arcade game. And she had no idea what I was doing, but she would sit and she'd ask questions and like, she understood, and she was kind of, I mean, especially at that time, she's like, oh, it's just like you're playing the cartoon, but you're actually controlling the turtle. That's cool. And then of course, later on now, she'll see me once in a while, if she comes visit or whatever. She's like, she'll watch me play Madden. And she's like, this is a game, right? This isn't the actual game on television. You're playing this. I'm like, yeah, Mom, I'm the one playing. The Giants are winning. That's how you know it's a video game. It's not real. So she, but it's still something nice where I think if you just sit there and kind of just watch and just ask questions sometimes, I think it's actually good bonding time. Me and my dad used to go to the arcades all the time, and it was something that we bonded over for a long time, was games and whatnot. So I definitely think that's a great way for parents to just get involved, is just it might be boring to you. You might not get it, but trust me, your kid appreciates you being there while they play. It means a lot. In terms of the future, like Lee mentioned, we are virtual reality is not going anywhere. It is here. We have multiple headsets on the market. We are now working on the way of making them completely wireless. Right now, the VR headsets are still wired to a system in your television, but we're getting to the point now where you can get more free range of movement, where you can get them wireless, and where you can get to the point where, like I was saying earlier, I think we are less than 10 years away from getting like treadmills and active haptic suits. And we already have the technology. It's only a matter of making it affordable and downsizing it to the point where people can have it in their homes, right? There's actually a lot of experiences out there where full buildings have been renovated to the point where they're full virtual reality experiences, where you go climbing and jumping and swinging across a pit, right? Like, so there's a Star Wars one out here in LA that people were going wild for, which Lee still hasn't come and visited to go play with me. But I'm kidding, buddy. But yeah, no, it's one of those. We are going to get to the point where those experiences that are now in warehouses, like a lot of other things, like the computer, like I was saying earlier, they used to be the size of rooms and buildings. Now all the processing power is the size of your pinky.
Amazing.
It's going to happen with this virtual reality experience, and I say probably by 2030. We are going to have that stuff in our living room, treadmills, haptic suits, full virtual reality. And it's going to be up to the parents to tap you on the shoulder in real life and yank that headset off and be like, it's time for dinner. So,
well, Christy, you were my litmus test. I know you got to go. You were my litmus test on this episode of whether or not we accomplished some really good information. Did we do our job today?
Bring back Pong.
All right, that's gonna have to do it for this episode. Christy has to go do the news. So, Ray, first off, thanks so much for being here and enlightening us with your knowledge and your wisdom on this. I think it was really educational. If you have any questions, please, where can people find you, Ray?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Ray Carsillo. You can Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Obviously, me and Lee do a weekly podcast also called Geeks Who Like Sports. You can email me at any time, ray@geekswhoLikeSports.com.
One last thing. I want to thank you. You really did help me a lot. And I was just joking, but this was great. I learned a lot and I'm going to embrace it. And I'm looking forward to the future. I can't wait to see what's going to come, what's going to happen.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad I was here to help calm the fears and whatnot. It's not so bad. It's going to be okay.
Ray will play you in Palm, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm really good. I just telling you.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. As always, if you want to see more episodes, visit us on ourkidsplayhockey.com. You can listen to the podcast wherever podcasts can be heard. Once again, for Ray Carsillo, Christy Casciano-Burns, Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for watching this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.